It's the state of the dungeon. It's a video that Rob does about his games. Yeah! Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Rob, and this is my State of the Dungeon address. This is for the game that took place on the 30th of April, 2021. The game Dungeons and Dragons, Basic Edition. The party had basically tromped through the dungeon, having various encounters along the way, but had been relatively lucky as far as remaining healthy. Some people took a little damage here and there, but they had healing potions. They were able to mitigate the damage. They had good armor to avoid some nasty encounters. So for the most part, they had gone through the dungeon, and they had found a way to teleport into the hidden burial tomb. Now, because of the way they did things, one person, the magic user Rune, ended up in the room first. 2 minutes later, the other magic user of the group would join him. That would be Marvin, the Magnificent. And then the next round after that would be the dwarf Bimley, and then the rest of the party would show up a few minutes later after discussing if they really wanted to go after them. So the interesting thing about all of this was that the characters didn't know what was waiting for them. It was only revealed after they had all made the plunge to go up to the illusionary cabinet of treasure and be teleported into the room. But as we would find out, events would change a little bit. Because when Rune appeared in the tomb, he found himself on a glyph, a teleportation glyph that seemed one way, in a 60 by 40 room with 10 sarcophagi in them. This is not something normally a first level magic user looks forward to. But for whatever reason, Rune has a kind of a devil-may-care attitude to him, and he daringly goes forward. So he tried opening one of the sarcophagi. And as he was trying, Rune is not strong, to say the least. So as he was straining and straining to open the sarcophagus, Marvin appeared. Poof. And was pressed into service to help him open the sarcophagus. They opened the first sarcophagus, the one immediately to the right when they came into the room, and just by random happenstance, they opened it up, there was a flash, and the teleportation circle changed. They found the trigger that allows them to go backwards through the teleportation into the room where the rest of the party was. So when they did that, this was before Bimley showed up. So all of a sudden, Bimley was in the room getting ready to jump after Marvin, and seemingly in the room, the cabinet blurred and switched corners of the room because it was now in sending mode, not receiving mode. And they didn't teleport to join the two magic users in the room. Now, when they opened it, they looked inside the sarcophagus, of course, and they found that there was a number of magical rune symbols, etc. Even though the module itself does not have any mechanical reasons why this should work, it makes sense that there would be magical paraphernalia and displays showing how the magic would work, especially since it can be activated and reactivated. So they reasoned this out. Two magic users have a fair amount of brain power, and it didn't really hurt the cause that Rune actually rolled a natural 1, so that's really good. So he puzzled it all out, figured out there are alteration runes that affect the teleporter and can send back. So once they realized that, they closed it up so that more people could join them, and that's when Bimley and the rest arrived. Once they got there, they thought, maybe we shouldn't just open the sarcophagi willy-nilly. because when Gorath, the elf, appeared, he has a sword that detects undead, and it does really well against them. It was glowing bright white, revealing that there were undead in the room with them. As you might guess, this is suboptimal. So, they decided they were going to be a little bit more practical in their attempt to open these sarcophagi. And instead what they did was they pushed the sarcophagi open a bit to the point of falling over. And Bimli, with his high strength, was a shoo-in to help, and he did. He opened up one, and on the bottom of the sarcophagus was a lot of coins. Long story short, all the sarcophagi had a number of coins in them. Most of them were empty. However, eventually they got to one that wasn't empty. Bimli opened it up and was immediately attacked by the thing that was inside. A wight. A powerful, energy-draining undead. And one of the nastier creatures that you would be likely to find in Basic Edition. As you go beyond that, you might be able to find bigger, nastier monsters like the vampire, and beyond that, the lich. But for starting adventuring characters, the wight is already a very nasty customer. So, the wight springs out, they go yeep, and the group moves into attack. Now, wights can only be hurt by silver and magical weapons. They may not have known that, but only one person really tried attacking it with a non-magical weapon, and he missed outright. And that was Shadowspawn the Hireling. So, the rest of them let loose with a volley of silvered weapons, which for the most part missed. Except it should be noted that Bella the Halfling definitely delivered a pretty solid blow with her silvered short sword. Silvered because of the blessing that was given it by the High Clerist of the Light from their home temple. Asfrid attempted to turn it, but it's too powerful for her turning attempts. Beginning initiates cannot turn more powerful undead like wights, so it ignored her. Nobody still cast a spell at it. Instead, Gorath wanted to try to use his sword. And he delivered a monstrous strike to it. Just whoosh. Prior to this, it had only been grazed a couple of times. Bella had poked it, and Marvin had kind of nicked it with his dagger. Gorath waffled it, and then as it got ready to turn and kill him, Bella finished it off. But in its time that it was alive, it did get one blow in on poor Bimli. Now, wights drain a level of experience, and if you are first level, as all the characters were, that means you're dead. One touch, whew, gone. So, poor Bimli died. Right there. Horrible way to go, really. The group was not happy about that. I mean, they had just gotten finished taking on one of these creatures, and it's a powerful undead, they know it, but one of their number was instantly taken down. It's not a good thing. And Gorath's sword was still glowing, showing that there was still more undeath to be found in this tomb. So, the group started to think on how to safely open the sarcophagus. And their attempt was to take 10-foot poles and kind of push at it. This is rather difficult. It's not easy to, at the distance of 10 feet, try poking with a pole against the edge of a sarcophagus that doesn't have any ornamentation or decoration and try to slide it off. That's a lot of weight in stone. So while they tried this, it didn't work very well. As a matter of fact, Bella ended up snapping the 10-foot pole she got from Astrid. Natural 20s. What do you do? So, the group settled on this. Gorath would push the sarcophagus open a crack, and then they would use a pole to prise it open. That way they'd be able to see what was inside before they could be attacked by it and be able to react. They also realized, tombs are just natural places for traps. However, the Shadow Spawn was willing to do whatever he was told by Astrid. You know, she paid him quite well, and you know, he was for the most part really happy to be in the same group as Marvin, who is the most amazing magic user that ever lived, according to Shadow Spawn. And they also had Chokesaw the Thief, but Chokesaw was determined that he was not going to die. And if this meant rationalizing why he shouldn't be checking for traps, he was going to do that. So he was like, look at them. They aren't even decorated. Nobody would put a trap on an undecorated sarcophagus. This proved to be wrong. Dead wrong. As they went through their usual routine, Bella was there to help support. Gorath was opening up the sarcophagus a bit, and a trap went off, spraying both he and Bella with a nasty alchemical fluid which instantly rusted everything they had. Neither of them made a saving throw to avoid the spray. So, everything that was not precious metals like gold and silver, or magical like that sword of Gorath's, instantly turned to rust and fell off. Both of them were packing plate armor. Fortunately, in Dungeons & Dragons, plate armor isn't terribly expensive. It's only 60 gold. But they lost their armor in the middle of a dungeon. They lost their shields. They lost their backup weapons. Fortunately, Bella's blessing that was on her short sword allowed it to avoid the rusting effect, but any spare backup weapons that weren't made solely out of wood, gone. So, not much more to do. They just put on the leather armor. Yes, they were still carrying around their old armor. Okay. Put it on so that they still had some protection, and proceeded to carry on. Very brave of them. Despite the fact they knew that there was absolutely lethal undead that they'd encountered, and possibility more were coming, they decided they weren't going to wait for that illuminator to show up from the Temple of Light. They were going to see this through to the end. So they opened up some more sarcophagi, found more and more coins, mostly silver, but they found some electrum. They found some stashes of gold, and they also found a bracelet, a pair of bracelets actually, that were rather rich prize. In another sarcophagus, they found a map which showed where a secret treasure was in the dungeon that they had overlooked. They also managed to find a description, a hint as to a secret exit out of this level of the tomb. Basically, they have to go to the corridor that runs along the eastern side and recite magical words to cause the door to appear. They never really followed up on this, which is a pity because the words were fun.
Well, yeah, we did.
Well, you didn't actually find the door, though. So,
no, because we found that little hiding spot where
you didn't find the door, though.
Oh.
Correct. And then they also found a scroll. This scroll had the spell Floating Disc on it, which Marvin identified because he has a scroll of Floating Disc himself, and even though the writing is different, you need a read magic spell to identify a scroll, even if you know what the scroll is. You can guess what it is, but in order to activate it, you need to be able to read it. But he did figure out that it's a Floating Disc spell, which is kind of nice. So, they eventually kind of reasoned out where the undead might be. They opened up all the other ones until there was only one left, and that sword was still glowing. They knew there was an undead in there, but they were prepared. They had holy water in hand, and I was kind of hoping they would crack open the sarcophagus and just dump all their holy water in it, and just clamp down on the lid so whatever it is couldn't get out. They didn't do that. Instead, what they did was they did, again, the usual thing of pushing it open a crack and getting ready to prise it open. But as they did that, the thing inside lifted the sarcophagus himself, because wights are quite strong. And yes, this was another wight. This time, it went right after the person in front of it, which is Gorath, who is, again, an elf in leather armor. I missed by one! Or he would have been a dead elf in armor. His claws scraped off of the leather armor that he was wearing. So the group turned and started engaging in combat. Gorath got a mighty slash with his sword, which weakened the thing quite a bit. Bella stabbed fully in with her short sword and inflicted a grievous wound. Marvin threw his silver daggers. Rune threw silver daggers. Not to great effect, but they contributed. This was a stronger white. They got it down so that it was at 8 hit points left. How could they possibly get by such a vicious creature? If it got to attack again, that might be the end for them. That's when the cleric goes, "Can I throw some holy water on it?" Sure. So she threw holy water. She missed. Sadness. She'd hit one once for a little bit of damage, but this one was just a miss. Then Chokesaw stepped up. Chokesaw and Shadowspawn were hiding in the corner, only coming out when they were challenged to check for traps. Which, even though they made some really lucky rolls and would have found traps if there were any on some of these devices, they didn't roll for the one that actually had the trap. So, that's kind of how it goes. So, Chokesaw steps up. He sees the white as a scary, scary, scary monster, and it's getting ready to bear down and go after. Looks like it's going to try to kill Gorath, with a pretty good chance of killing him. If it hits, it was going to kill him outright anyhow. He took out the flask of holy water that was given to him by Asfred. Lined it up. Threw. Rolled. Beautifully. Hit it. Roll damage. 1d8. Max damage. Killed it with a vial of thrown holy water. Just exactly what he needed. Flew end over end into the room. Went right into the thing's mouth. Poured down its throat. The innards of it started just burning and sizzling, and eventually the neck just completely corroded and the head fell off and it was destroyed. As soon as the fight, the brouhaha had subsided, there was a flash and the Illuminator shows up, Father Grigori. And he's like, "Yes, I'm here. I do not detect any more undead, however. Did you kill them all?" And they did. And Grigori acknowledged that they had done a good deed, and was impressed that they had been killing whites at their tender age. He also warned them that because Bimli had died by a white, his body needed to be blessed immediately, or it would rise as a white in 1 to 4 days. They were not real pleased with that thought, so they let Father Grigori take care of it. He basically told them that he put in a good word for them at the temple for their deeds, and basically just kind of wished them luck on their way, but there was no more evil for him to smite. So the group, hiding the fact that they had just robbed this tomb, loaded up all the coins that they had discovered, and this is harder now because they didn't have Bimli's strength to carry everything. And loaded everything up from the previous dungeon, slid it all around back to the entrance, and Marvin used his floating disc spell to carry the treasure up through the hole that they came in, through the trapdoor off of the main dungeon concourse. And that basically was that. They had the treasure, they had cleared out all the monsters, and as they were walking out, they noticed it's awfully quiet in the castle. Nobody around. There was staff, there were people cleaning it and dressing it up before, but now it's empty.
Missed the treasure we found in the...
Oh, they did eventually follow the treasure map and found a 500 gold chunk of treasure after about a half an hour searching by the whole party.
Yep.
Very good, thank you. So they get out of the castle and they find out the driver of the wagon is gone and the guard out front is gone. This isn't good. They find the Illuminator down below the path. He had basically made a very quick cairn and had performed funerary rites on Bimli's body to make sure he didn't rise as a white. And they went to ask him, "What happened? Did you kill everybody who was inside?" And he said, "Nope." Another monster had come up. It's a creature called a doppelganger that can affect the shapes of other people. And it had gotten in, gained the confidence of people, and by cleverly changing shapes, it was able to appear as different people and kill everybody inside the castle without much difficulty.
Damn.
They're all like, oh, bet that was Tom, jerk. And it was. So the doppelganger had, when they encountered it, he goes, wow, that's a whole party of adventurers. Unless they split up or make themselves vulnerable, yeah, I'm not going to attack them. And found out there were all these other people in the castle, so it just went through one at a time and slaughtered everybody. So, the group was basically kind of had their hands tied with doing anything else with that. They really weren't prepared to go after a doppelganger who had already fled into the woods when the Illuminator had confronted it. So it's now off the table. But it's not in the dungeon anymore, so they had still accomplished their mission. So they went back to Caldwell. They drove the wagon back. No difficulties. Got to the castle. Got to the town, first of all, I should say. And they were let in, although the guards were a little surly because the usual driver wasn't there. They didn't seem too terribly sad that he was dead, because for the character of the driver, I was using my best Argus Filch from Harry Potter impression. I thought that was pretty good. Nobody else got it, but it was cool. So they got back in and they went to talk to Caldwell right away. And they reported that they had finished their mission. They were paid. Although Caldwell wasn't too pleased that there's now a doppelganger running loose, that causes all kinds of problems for merchants. But he was pleased that they had accomplished their mission. And after this, he, again, gave them their money. And with the treasure that they had gotten, several members of the group were ready to level up. The only one who wasn't was the elf, because elves are so screwed in Dungeons & Dragons, taking forever to level up. But once they get a couple levels under their belt, they're pretty dynamically powerful. The rest of the group, though, was able to level. We basically just rolled hit points for them because your attack chart doesn't change until you hit 4th level at the best in Dungeons & Dragons. Your saving throws don't change until 4th level at the best. Your spells do change. So now Astrid can cast a pair of 1st level clerical spells. That always helps a party out. The mages leveled up, so they'll be able to cast an additional 1st level spell. That might help quite a bit. And everybody got a few more hit points again, except for the elf. Nobody really knocked it out of the park as far as hit points go, but Chokesaw right now could actually do a little bit of tanking. He can take a solid blow from just about anything, although he's not going to want to, clearly. That's not really the thieves' job. And the rest of the group is going to have to buy new armor and think of ways to spend some of the money. Everybody in the group, each of them got over 1,000 gold, and since your experience is tied into your gold, that really helped to push everybody up. Plus, fighting a pair of wights and all the other things that they had fought, it was 1,900 experience. It was a good night for everybody. So that ended the Dungeons & Dragons campaign. There really wasn't a great deal more to do with that. They had a good party afterwards, toasted several times to Bimley. They were sad to see him go. I love dwarves. And they enjoyed having him. He was a good henchman. But nobody in the actual party died, which was good. So they're all going to, if we play these characters again, they'll be able to enjoy the benefits of being a little bit more advanced and be able to take on more difficult things, be able to leverage that extra power a little bit more. After we were done with that, it actually didn't go for terribly long of a time, and Rune's player was not able to unfortunately finish the whole thing because he was under the weather. But when it was all done, I made my pitch for the next game. I gave them 6 choices. And to me, this is a dream. I wish that I had a situation where I had a game master who spread out 6 different games, all of them pretty cool or having some good thing to them, and let me pick what we're doing. And let the group pick so that, he knew exactly what they wanted. So the first 2 were easy. Ghostbusters, play that again with the characters they had. Or Dungeons & Dragons, continue on with these characters and tell another story, another adventure. We could have done that. And as a matter of fact, one of the players, the player of Gorath, expressed that he might be interested in doing that, although he might have just rolled for that randomly. But the other 4 choices were something else. The first option was Paranoia, the newest version by Mongoose Games. I like the presentation. I like the fact that everything is in one nice, neat little box and has a lot of visual appeal and some really neat effects to make the game go. Plus, the system is very compact and dynamic. Not this big sprawling thing or made up of a lot of random charts the way that the old versions used to be from West End Games. Another option was the Star Wars, the role-playing game from West End Games. That one was really met really well. People definitely were interested in that. Star Wars is just something that a lot of people in this hobby universally are kind of drawn to. It's a great adventure story. There is some magic, but there's also space. There's something for everybody. The group was definitely teased a little bit with that, and had definitely expressed some interest. Then I also offered Warhammer 40,000 Wrath and Glory, and got some unexpected support from all sides. The player who played Marvin was transcendent because I was putting out these games that he was very much interested in playing. And several of the players were really kind of interested in the Warhammer 40,000. Although some of our less experienced players really didn't have a lot of experience with it, I tried to assure them that if they played it, they'd still have a good time. Because sometimes not knowing and learning through the game can be really exciting, and you really only ever do that once, so it could be a lot of fun.
And we have a good storyteller.
Well, that doesn't hurt. But the one they chose was none of those. The one instead that they chose was The Princess Bride. So, the next game that we'll be playing is a fun little story that I've concocted for The Princess Bride, a game of romantic comedy and thrilling action-adventure. And the cast of characters that will be played, at least as far, and they'll be able to change the names if they want. But as of right now, as I understand it, the cast of characters are a diverse lot, mostly of ne'er-do-wells. We don't have a lot of, really virtuous people in this one, so that they'll have the freedom to express their morals however they like. We have Josie, who is a wandering farmhand. We have Arnor Blevins, who is the rogue of the group. We have Bonk. Bonk is a brute. We have Manfredi Devasco. He is an agent. We have Renoir Lefez. He is a duelist. And finally, we have One-Eyed Pete, who is a pirate. And we will see if they change their names of any of that. But the players left in really good spirits, looking forward to a new adventure that I can only hope that I deliver up to their satisfaction. Very excited about this because The Princess Bride uses the fudge system for dice rolling, which is very simple, has a little bit of elegance to it, but it's kind of interesting. And I look forward to seeing how they do with that. But most importantly, and the most fundamental part of any Fate or Fudge game, or really anything that's a very rules-like game, your players need to bring it. No game master can tell such an amazing story that if the players aren't engaged and participating in the story, it isn't going to be, at best, a lukewarm experience, if not a bad one. So my previous experience running it was bad because it didn't get the players involved as much. This time I think the players are going to be chomping at the bit to involve themselves and actually really sink their teeth into a game that'll allow them to be as cool as they want to be. Say the cool things, do the cool things, and have a really good time doing it. So, eyes on the prize. We're looking forward to a really good session that next time. So, I'm Rob. Thank you very much for joining me again here in my basement lair. And until next time, farewell.